Good evening, everyone. This is President Lemmer, showing at 7 o'clock on April 12th, 2021. I hereby call to order our Board of Education meeting for this evening. If you'd like to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. All right, we will go to the superintendent's report. Mr. Cook.
Thank you, President Lemmer. I just have a few things this evening. First and foremost, kindergarten roundup drive-through is scheduled for Monday, April 19th from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Parents will have the opportunity to pick up important information as well as educational materials. There's also a Zoom parent question and answer session that will take place Thursday, April 22nd at 6:30. And a Zoom link has been emailed to the parents of all the registered kindergarten students. There's also information on our website. So if you didn't get information or you want to find out more details, you can find that out on our main page of the website. And I also wanted to mention that the middle school 5th grade parent orientation is Monday, May 3rd at 6:30. And the fifth grade student orientation for Raleigh is Thursday, May 6th at 9 a.m. and Murphy on Friday, May 7th at 9:45 p.m. And all this information, once again, has been emailed out to parents and is available on the website. So the other information as a part of my report is a response to return to school update. There's been a lot going on over the last couple of weeks. So I just wanted to start out by saying that a week ago, Friday, April 2nd, the Ingham County superintendents were asked to attend an emergency meeting with the Ingham County Health Department. At that meeting, the Ingham County Health Department recommended that all schools in Ingham County switch to virtual learning 6/12 for the week of April 12th through the 16th. At that time, all the superintendents agreed to follow that recommendation, and we moved forward with that. There were no changes recommended for elementary, and a notification was sent out that day on that Friday. And then last Friday, April 9th, the governor came out with her recommendation for districts to switch to virtual learning 6/12 for 2 weeks. Superintendents met again, and we got input from the Ingham County Health Department, but we could not come to consensus on the second week as a group. We did consult with the Ingham County Health Department, but they did not give a recommendation for week 2. We are meeting with the Ingham County Health Department on Wednesday to get an update on the numbers and to decide how to proceed for week 2. They hopefully will give us some more information and give us a little more guidance as to what to do in that week 2. We hopefully will notify parents as soon as we get the information, make a decision as to what we're going to do for the second week at secondary. No changes to elementary at this point. Although we were able to honor requests over the weekend and today from parents who wanted to move from in-person to virtual. We had students at each one of our elementary buildings. This was accomplished by either moving students to the virtual teacher for a period of time or providing packets. We did have some parents that just wanted to have packets for this week. They only want to quarantine for this week. So we were able to get that information out to them today so they had information for learning for this week. So thanks to our principals and elementary teachers for making that happen. There was a lot of movement in a very short period of time. So thanks to all who made that happen. Academic testing will continue as planned for this week. Middle school PSAT testing is tomorrow, April 12th. And then the high school has various testing scheduled for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. As indicated in my communication, these assessments are not required and students will not be penalized for taking the exams in person. There are makeup dates available that have been shared and will be available for students that don't feel comfortable coming into school during those dates. And families should have received information from the buildings about testing last week. And then the other issue was athletics. The governor did call for a 2-week pause for athletics. We met with Ingham County Health Department about this. They did not give a firm recommendations for athletics, although they did say if you were going to move forward to continue to follow the safety protocols and the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services new testing protocols for all athletes. That's now required for all athletes. And we begin testing at the high school tomorrow. And we will use these results to determine if there are any adjustments that need to be made as a result of testing for the various sports. We were able to move a good portion of our competitions scheduled this week to next week or out into the future to limit the amount of competitions that we have for this week. And if you look at our league in terms of athletics, in the CAAC, only 3 of the 19 schools have paused athletics for this week. Most of the schools are relying on testings to determine how they're going to be moving forward for individual sports. There was one district that I know that's still on the fence based on notification of their testing results, but all this information was shared with parents yesterday. And so there's been a lot going on, a lot of health data out there. And so we've pretty much been relying on the Ingham County Health Department because they are giving us numbers for our county and different age ranges in terms of positivity and such. So we've kind of been relying on them in terms of how we move forward. And as I mentioned, we're going to meet with them on Wednesday to see if any of their recommendations changes moving forward. If they do, then we'll probably make some adjustments to what we do moving forward for the future. So that's the update. As I mentioned, it was a busy last week. Unfortunately, it was spring break, but we still had a lot of meetings and information going on to make decisions when we came back from after spring break. So that's all I have. That concludes my report.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions from board members? Greg?
Yeah, not really a question, but a statement. Steve, I appreciate you and some of the other superintendents in the area getting together on a couple of occasions to reassess and assess and reassess the situation. I appreciate also, I was a little nervous about moving athletics forward, but I do appreciate that your willingness to move as many of the events out as you could. I also appreciate you taking maybe a second look after some of the first round of testing comes in starting tomorrow. So I do appreciate your efforts on that front. So thank you.
I know the Meridian Township Parks and Rec has paused use of any of their fields for sports practices or activities. Have we as a district gotten any requests from any of our club sports or our community sports to use our facilities for practices or events?
We have. I've been in conversation. Angela Dubb, who runs our community ed, has reached out. We're trying to get some consensus of what we do. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of space available. So I believe she's kind of working on a plan if we move forward to offer some of our fields where available, but I don't believe that there's a lot of availability moving forward. Green space is at a premium right now.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments? All right, hearing and seeing none, I think we can move on to our next agenda item, the discussion item number 1. Mr. Caston, you have a proposal for us or a recommendation?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I'm here tonight, as I am around this time every year, to make a recommendation for the purchase of some computers as part of our annual computer replacement program. This year, we're recommending the purchase of 90 computers, desktop computers, and these are going to replace computers in our classrooms, in our offices, in our labs that are 5 years old. We're going to purchase these as we typically do through the statewide device purchasing program. This purchasing window opens up on Wednesday, April 14th, and we don't have exact pricing yet from the state. I have seen preliminary pricing, but they will be finalizing that pricing tomorrow. And so that's why in the memo to Mr. Cook, I'm recommending that the board approve based on a not to exceed amount per computer, and that not to exceed amount would be $515 per computer. So the total amount would not exceed $46,350. Now, today I did see some of that preliminary pricing. As I mentioned, they will be making final approval on it tomorrow. And it looks like it's going to come in closer to the $500 range per computer. And so probably closer to about $44,000. But my recommendation at this point, until we see that final pricing, is to request that the board consider approving the not to exceed price of $515 per computer. So this is obviously a discussion item tonight with an action item at the next board meeting on April 26th. We will have final pricing by that April 26th board meeting. So when you take action on this item 2 weeks from now, you'll know exactly the dollar amount that you'll be approving. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer any. And but it's just our standard annual 5-year computer replacement program that we do each year.
I had 2 questions, Jeff. One, and it's just because this information escapes me right now. Did we get all of our computing items in that we ordered previously, like through the pandemic? Because I know we were hitting shortages and things like that.
We have not received everything. You know, this time of the year, I typically come to the board also with a recommendation to purchase some Chromebooks so that we can get them in the summer for use for the next school year. But because all mobile devices are in very high demand because of the pandemic, I actually made a recommendation at the September board meeting. I think it was September 28th. It was right at the end of September, because the purchasing window of the previous device purchasing program, that window closed on September 30th. And we were told that there was about a 5 to 6 month delay in orders. We placed the order on either September 29th or 30th, and we still have not received those Chromebooks. The latest projection is that they're going to be shipped on May 18th. So our timing is still where we want it to be, because again, we typically make a recommendation in the spring so that we get these items in the summer so that we can deploy them to the classrooms for use in the next school year. So yeah, those 450 Chromebooks that we ordered at the end of September have not arrived yet. And then we did an additional purchase right at the beginning of January, and those have not arrived yet. I have not even checked on a delivery date for those because I'm expecting those to be 6 or 7 months as well. But other than that, everything else has arrived.
Okay, I appreciate one that we were able to kind of get a jump on that. Will we be expecting the similar delays for these? I know they're not mobile devices, but I know it's still, you know, computing shortages in general.
There will be a delay, but not as much. Typically, when we place an order for our desktop computers, it's about anywhere from about 10 days to 3 weeks for delivery. And so I hold off ordering these until about the second week of June. This purchase is coming out of the 21-22 budget year, so we really shouldn't receive these until July 1st. But the projection for these desktops is 8 to 10 weeks. And so if the board approves this on April 26th, I will be putting the order in pretty much the next day, which hopefully will mean we'll get them delivered right around July 1st.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is for about 90 computers. Oh, sorry, Greg. I just was trying to remember how many total desktop computers we have in our classrooms. So what percentage of our desktop computers are we replacing?
So we try to replace about 20% each year. This is a little bit less than 20%. We have about 700 computers in the district. But the way the cycle works out this year is that these computers, these 90 computers, are 5 years old, and all of our other computers are newer. So this is one of those years that we don't have to spend as much on desktop computers. So it's a little bit less than 20% of our inventory, but that's what we shoot for each year.
And that was essentially, Jeff, thank you. That was essentially my question, is how does this number of 90 compare year over year? So you answered that for me. So thanks, Jeff.
You're welcome. Yep, a little bit less. We're typically around maybe 115, 120 a year.
Hypothetically, since the actuals may be coming in lower, would you tweak that number? Or I guess doing the math, it wouldn't equate to very many anyway.
Yeah, there's not really a need for those computers at this point. That will leave us a little extra money in our budget next year if there's any unanticipated items that may come up, or if we decide to add to our inventory. But no, right now we'll keep it at the 90.
Great, thank you.
And then Jeff, just I think I asked this when I served on the board the last time, but I don't remember the answer, so I apologize. What happens with the computers that the 90 or so that were, you know, are they sent back to a company? Do we donate? I mean, what is that process?
Yeah, we contact a number of recycling companies and we just put out a general, it's not a bid, but it's a request for a quote, or, you know, is there a cost for you to come and pick these up, or are you willing to pay? And because our computers are newer than I think most that they get, we do get paid by the vendor. Last year, I think we recycled, you know, probably about 110, 115 computers. And if my memory serves correct, we got about $10,000 or $12,000 back. So what we do is we advertise it to a number of recycling companies and we award it to the highest bidder. So that would be the plan for this year as well.
Thanks, Jeff.
You're welcome.
It might be really important, again, with that computing shortage going on, that those might be very valuable at this point.
That's true, yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions before we let Jeff go? All right, so then we've got Mr. Cook again for our extended learning plan monthly reconfirmation and the school attendance data monthly report.
So as required by the state, we are obligated to report our learning plan and submit not only our learning plan, but our attendance data to the state on a monthly basis. We have done that for the last month. Our extended learning plan did change with the changes that would take place in March, moving to the 4-day full schedule at elementary and the 4 partial days at secondary. So that change in information was included in the last submission. In addition, we submitted our attendance data. As I mentioned the last month, we're now required to have attendance data for in-person and virtually. So originally we were just reporting virtually. Now we have 2 reportings for the virtual and the in-person learners. And that information has been submitted to the state and also is posted on our website. So you can find that information on the budget transparency part of the website or on the other COVID portion of the website to find out if you want to look at any of that information. So that's all I got.
Steve, can you review for us again the when we were fully virtual, attendance was tracked kind of differently and you had to document a certain number of contacts with the student per week. Is that still the same for those who are fully virtual? And then, so what does attendance look like? Is it more of a traditional attendance for those who are in person?
I believe it's the same for the virtual students, but it has changed for the in-person learners. It's more to a traditional mode of reporting for those in person.
Great, thank you.
Looking at this report reminded me of a question I wanted to ask you about earlier with the responsive return and this week being virtual for our 6-12. I know we had paused the learning labs when the numbers were spiking in November, December, just because of the high case numbers. I'm wondering what we're doing this week for our special education students. Are they able to come in and receive any services or assistance, or are they completely virtual for this week?
I believe they're completely virtual. And I see Jim Pulasic, our special ed director, shaking his head. So that confirms my answer.
Great, any other questions? All right, we can move on to correspondence and comments from the public. Secretary Wheeler, if you could report out on the correspondence to begin, please.
Yes, thank you. Since our last board meeting, we received a letter of appreciation from Kelly Upton regarding waitlisted students and getting as many students into the classroom who wanted that option. And we received several letters of correspondence regarding resuming school and in-person learning post-spring break. Everything from what the governor's recommendations were to how we're going about going to go about getting students safely back into the classroom, and the opportunity to get COVID testing through MDHSS for families who were wanting to make sure we go about this process safely post spring break, getting back to school. We also received correspondence from Chip Taunt and Jason Kilday regarding resuming spring sports. And a letter from Nancy Marr was brought to our attention, and her letter had to do with the accountability for a more diverse curriculum throughout the district. And I think that's it to date for correspondence.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we'll move to comments from the public, and just a reminder, as always, that this is not a forum for two-way conversation, but we do welcome and appreciate the comments that we receive from members of the community. Anything that has not already been addressed or answered this evening will be directed to staff for appropriate follow-up. Each individual is allocated no more than 5 minutes per individual to speak with us this evening. And we have 2 mechanisms to interact with us this evening. It doesn't look like we have anybody logged in via just the telephone, but for those who are online, we use the raise hand feature in the Zoom platform. If you raise your hand, we'll call on people in the order that they appear. Mr. Casson will unmute you for your time once you're recognized, and then we'll move on in order. If anybody is not able to use the chat function, but would like to share some comments with us this evening, you can utilize a designated email address, which is webmaster@hazlett.k12.mi.us. And Mr. Casson will monitor that for us during our public comment period, and we'll share any messages that are received. So I will open up the public comment period. I do see a hand up, so we'll call on Jackie Duckett. Jackie, welcome to the Hazlett Board of Education. And you are unmuted.
Hi, I'm Jackie Duckett. I am a spokesperson for Hazlett's Voice for Change. And I wanted to announce that we will be hosting a town hall next week on Tuesday the 20th at 8 p.m. And we just want to promote community conversation and discussions. Anyone's welcome. You can find out more information on our Facebook page, and a Zoom link will be there, and we hope to see you there. That's all I have.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Let's see. I currently don't see any hands up. Mr. Casson, in that 30 seconds, did anyone share any emails with you?
No, we have not received any emails.
Okay. Just in case anybody's having trouble with technology, I'll give it another second here to let folks raise their hands. Oh, there we go. We've got Beth Boyd. And I should have said this before, but if the name on the screen does not match who you are, if you could please make sure you fully identify yourself with first and last name. But I'm going to recognize screen name Beth Boyd, and welcome to the Hazlett Board of Education.
Thank you. My name is Beth Boyd. I have a daughter who's in 4th grade at Raulia. We have had an excellent experience here. We've lived here for about 3 years now, and I've been very happy with the level of education, but I do have to say that I was extremely concerned about Ms. Gilling's lawsuit. I think this needs to be investigated, and I ask you, please do take this seriously. This is a serious matter. I want to see people of color have equitable education in this community. I want them represented. I want them to be treated appropriately, and I implore you to please take this seriously and please make this a priority of the board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. All right, looking at our participant list again, and I, again, currently do not see any additional hands. So it looks like I can call to close the comments from the public. Oh, wait, one more, it's just snuck in. And I don't say that to mean I'm trying to cut anybody off, but I see a JJ. So you are now unmuted. If you could go ahead and fully introduce yourself with full first and last name, please. And
Yes,
welcome.
I am Jeremy Wells. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm currently a student at hazlett. I am a junior. Recently, this is regarding Ms. Schilling's. I started a petition about 2 weeks ago, I believe, calling for the reinstatement of Ms. Schilling's. We have raised about 717 signatures. I'd like to read some comments from people who signed the signature, if that is fine with you.
It's your 5 minutes.
Okay, so someone said, I am a parent of 2 hazlett alumni, grandparent of 2 hazlett public school students, and a taxpayer to hazlett public schools. Mr. Cook has contributed to the ongoing inequity that has been at the school for years and years. Ms. Schillings is a shining light. I would not only like to see her get her job back, but also to replace Mr. Cook. Another person said, I believe racism is extremely prevalent in many areas of our state. Many of us know to stay out of hazlett so as not to be harassed. This and many other issues need to be addressed, especially on the local levels. Jenna McLennan stated, it's past time that hazlett directly deals with the racism and discrimination in the district. Ms. Schillings has a valuable voice and perspective that the district should keep and listen to. Lily Watson said, racism should be addressed in schools. All social issues need to be addressed with the same level of importance. So the petition basically called for her to be reinstated and for a better curriculum on racism within hazlett public schools. I believe throughout hazlett public schools, correct me if I'm wrong, but we only have 1 teacher that is a person of color. That is really sad, to be honest, especially for our students of color who have to go to the school every day, a majority white school with no one to look up to, no one that can be a voice for them, because the representation is important. Also, regarding the NAACP what is it called? You know, the investigation to hazlett public schools, they called for a better curriculum as well. This isn't a good look for hazlett at all, and I'm sure you guys all know this. Racism is prevalent in hazlett. I'm sure if you ask any student, that they will have an experience of someone being racist, maybe towards them, maybe towards someone else. And this isn't just racism, it goes far further than that. It's homophobia, it's sexism, it's ableism. Racism is just what's important right now, as we know, with all the current events going on in the world. And I think it's really important that hazlett school listens to these voices and listens to what the community wants, because it's not fair for the students of color to be pushed down and repressed and discriminated against within these schools. And it's not just students, it's teachers. Maybe they don't realize it, but there's microaggressions going on, and it's horrible and it shouldn't be happening. And it needs to be addressed 100%. And that is all.
Thank you very much for joining us. All right, so again, I am not seeing any hands raised. So we will move on to board reports. Mr. Casson, sorry, any emails?
No additional emails.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, Policy and Personnel Committee. Vice President Polverento, do you have a report for us?
So our committee met the morning of Friday, March 26th. Much of our meeting was taken up with the responsive return to school update, including the amount of work and effort by our teachers and our administrators and staff to accommodate pretty much every student that wanted to return to school. So we had some teachers who agreed to move from virtual to in-person, and Mr. Cook gave an update on all of those transitions and where we were, as well as the use of some concurrent learning for a couple of classes in some of our higher elementary grades. We also gave an update on what was going on with COVID testing events scheduled by the Ingham County Health Department, how he was working with the health department to identify those events, the request he had made to see if we could do something specific in hazlett, but that they really were trying to use the established events. And then also we talked about the changes in the schedule at the time for the high school to accommodate testing this week. And this was, of course, before we knew that the recommendation was going to come from the health department to transition all 6 through 12 to virtual this week. Superintendent Cook during that meeting also gave an update on the number of positive cases we had identified in our schools during that first week of more time in person. We also discussed the survey that was conducted by Dr. Flannel and what the plans were to both share the results with our community as well as with the Board of Education. We also discussed how Dr. Flannel is working with Hazlett Voices for Change and the role that they will play in the district's diversity plan as Dr. Flannel's work moves forward. We were really excited to hear kind of a preliminary number about how many community members expressed interest in being part of the planning committee for the district's diversity plan. So it was really exciting, and we were really heartened by the number of people who want to be involved in addressing this issue in our community. So that is the end of my report.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions for policy and personnel? All right, then we're going to move on to finance and facilities. And I understand, Mr. Morey, you have our report this evening.
Yes, I will be giving the finance and facilities report tonight. We met slightly earlier in that week on Tuesday, March 23rd, and we had a similar schedule to what was just discussed. We talked about all the different things happening with the responsive return to school plan, all of the pieces that had to come into play to move students where they needed to go so that we could get as many people the choice that they wanted, as many as wanted to either stay virtual or move to in-person at that time, so we accommodate everybody. We discussed changes to those schedules that were going to be happening this week with the testing. Obviously, some things have changed even more so since then. And we talked about the positive cases that we've been identifying in the schools and how that's impacting everything. Finally, we went over the survey with not with Dr. Flannel, but that Dr. Flannel implemented. And again, how, as it was already said, and how Hazlett Voices for Change is going to be a little more directly involved in that process.
Great. Any questions or clarifications for Josh? All right. Speaking of Hazlett Voices for Change, Mr. Cook, can you give us an update on, I think we heard a little bit about that from the committee reports, but what the status is on the survey, future meetings, et cetera?
Yeah, so I spoke to Dr. Flannel this afternoon, and they're still in the process of quantifying the data, but they have kind of some summary information that he's going to put into a report that I'll share with the board tomorrow. He's going to be meeting with our administrative team tomorrow afternoon and sharing some of that preliminary data. We've also invited Jackie Duckett to attend that meeting with our administrators to share in some of that data that Dr. Flannel is going to be presenting. At this point, he told me today that there are upwards of 1,000 people who responded to the survey. And as Mrs. Palvarento alluded to, we had around 120 or so community members that showed interest in being a part of the committee moving forward. So that's a very high number. We're very excited about that. And as I mentioned, I've been in communication with Jackie over the weekend in terms of where we're at, and we're excited to have her to be a part of that meeting tomorrow as we start to begin looking at the results. Dr. Flannel did say it would probably take another week or so to kind of quantify all the data with individual responses, and over 1,000 responses. It's going to take a little more time, but as I mentioned before, he's working with Dr. Yoon, who's at Michigan State University and also a parent in our district, to help him with that process of disaggregating the data and quantifying it for us as we put the next steps together. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Casson, can you check the videos of participants, please? And then we will move on to items from board members. quiet group this evening. Anyone? Bueller?
I'll say something real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Right before this, I got to go to packet pickup over at Wilkshire. So it's always good to see our teachers, even if it's from afar or just a wave as we go by. And as Superintendent Cook said, we have kindergarten roundup coming next week. And I'm excited for my daughter to be able to participate in that, even though it's going to be a little different than normal. And we'll see how it goes.
All right. I guess I'll potentially close here by again thanking everybody, especially our administrators who were kind of working over spring break, not dealing with, but interacting with the health department, staying up on the changing data, the recommendations from the health department, navigating what are the mandates versus what's recommended. And so the quick adapting of what continues to be an ever-changing situation. I just want to acknowledge that work that was done behind the scenes last week and is continuing this week as well. And for any staff, any other leadership that was involved in that conversation, those conversations as well. All right, well, we can go on to our consent agenda. We have 4 items this evening. I will read through all of them. If anyone needs any item pulled for questions or clarification, I am happy to do that. Number 1, approval of minutes of the March 22nd, 2021 regular Board of Education meeting. Item number 2, approval of minutes of the March 22nd closed session minutes, which no action was taken. Item number 3, approval of minutes of the March 23rd Finance and Facilities Committee meeting. And item number 4, approval of the minutes of the March 26th Policy and Personnel Committee meeting. Anyone need any of those items pulled this evening? All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Motion Collins, second Maury, I believe.
Yes.
All right, all in favor, please, let's do a roll call. Oh, and I didn't take roll call attendance, but we can do it now, I suppose. Oh my goodness, and I don't even have my little cheat sheet. Bird?
Here. And
Here
yes.
and yes, all right, thank you. Collins?
Here and yes.
Thank you. Maury?
Here and yes.
Mashad?
Yes.
And clearly here. Paul Varento?
Here and yes.
And Wheeler?
Here and yes.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Lemmer votes aye as well. The consent agenda is approved. So we'll move on to announcements. We have a Finance and Facilities Committee meeting scheduled for April 20th at 9 a.m. That may be remote depending on what the guidance is at the time. We have a Policy and Personnel Committee meeting scheduled for the 23rd, also potentially remote. And finally, the next regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting is scheduled for April 26th at 7 p.m. And that also may be remote depending on current status of Ingham County. So that is all we have. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
I saw Paul Varento with the motion and Wheeler for the second. I'm guessing there's no discussion. I'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing and hearing none opposed, motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.